Hi, my name is Robert, and I'm 65 years old. I never imagined that after working hard my entire life, raising my son with love and building a home full of sacrifice, I would one day be humiliated in the cruelest way possible by the woman who married into my family. My own daughter-in-law stood across the table, demanding my credit card as if I owed her my very existence. And when I refused, she didn't shout or argue. She hurled a steaming cup of coffee straight into my face. That was the moment everything changed. Before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded, let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed or disrespected by someone you treated like family? If so, share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to mention where you're watching from. I'd love to thank you personally. And please, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. This story will shock you. I grew up believing that family was everything. I wasn't a rich man, but I was hardworking. For more than 40 years, I put in 12-hour shifts at a factory, saving every penny, paying off my small house, and making sure my only son, Daniel, had the opportunities I never had. I thought that if I gave him love, stability, and a good education, he would never feel the kind of struggle I went through as a child. Daniel was a bright boy. He studied hard, graduated from college, and became a software engineer. I was proud of him. So proud, in fact, that when he told me he had met a woman named Claire, beautiful, ambitious, and full of confidence, I supported his decision to marry her without hesitation. I thought, finally, my son will have the family he deserves. Finally, I'll have peace in my old age, but peace, that word disappeared from my life the moment Claire stepped into our home. At first, everything seemed normal. She was polite, even charming. She'd sit with me at the dinner table, smiling and asking about my day. She called me Dad, and for a while I believed she truly respected me. I even gave her small gifts, like jewelry on her birthday or extra cash when she said she wanted to surprise Daniel. I was happy to help. I thought I was just being generous. But generosity, I would soon learn, has limits. And some people, they don't just accept kindness, they exploit it. Slowly, her attitude began to change. The sweet girl I thought I knew became sharp-tongued and entitled. She complained that the house was too small, the furniture too old, the car too cheap. "Daniel makes good money now," she'd say, rolling her eyes. "We shouldn't have to live like peasants." It hurt. I had worked my fingers to the bone to pay off this house, and here she was, calling it a cage. Still, I stayed silent. After all, what could I say? She was my son's wife. I didn't want to create conflict. But silence, I discovered, only fed her arrogance. The first time she asked for my credit card, she made it sound innocent. "Dad, I just need to buy a few things online. I'll pay you back immediately." I didn't think much of it, so I handed it over. A week later, I noticed a bill for hundreds of dollars, clothes, cosmetics, and luxury items. She didn't even try to hide it. She just shrugged and said, "You can afford it, can't you?" That night, I couldn't sleep. Something inside me whispered, "Robert, this is only the beginning." I tried talking to Daniel, but he brushed it off. "Come on, Dad," he said. "Claire just wants nice things. Don't make it a big deal. You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word pierced me. Was I really overreacting? Or was my son so blinded by love that he couldn't see the truth? As weeks turned into months, the tension grew unbearable. Claire no longer pretended to respect me. She openly mocked my old-fashioned clothes, laughed at my frugal habits, and treated me as if I were nothing more than a bank account living under the same roof. She'd whisper to Daniel when I walked into the room, making me feel like a stranger. In my own home. Still, I endured it, because that's what fathers do, right? We endure, we sacrifice. We tell ourselves that things will get better, but they didn't. The morning she threw that coffee into my face wasn't the beginning of her cruelty. It was the climax of months, even years, of disrespect and greed. And yet, even as the hot liquid burned my skin, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would not be broken. I had spent my entire life building myself from nothing, and I wasn't about to let a spoiled, arrogant woman tear me apart. What Claire didn't know was that the man she thought was old, weak, and easy to manipulate was far more patient and far more dangerous than she could ever imagine. Claire's true nature didn't reveal itself all at once. It crept into our lives slowly, like a poison. At first, it was little remarks, snide comments about my old shoes, or about how embarrassing it was to drive to family gatherings in my battered pickup truck. She'd laugh and say, "Daniel, why don't you just trade this junk for something nicer? Everyone must think we're poor." I pretended not to hear, but inside, the words cut deep. That truck wasn't junk. It was the same truck I'd driven for 2 decades, the one that carried me back and forth to work every single day, while I saved money for my son's education. Every scratch on its body told a story of sacrifice, but to Claire it was just another reason to belittle me. Soon her disdain extended to the house. I'd worked years to pay it off, brick by brick, loan by loan. It wasn't a mansion, but it was warm, comfortable, and filled with memories. To me it was priceless. To Claire it was a prison. "This house is too small," she complained one evening at dinner. "The kitchen is outdated, the bathrooms are tiny, and the furniture looks like it belongs in a thrift store." "Daniel, we deserve better. We should be living in a modern home, something that reflects your success." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, but he didn't argue. He just nodded, as though her words carried truth. That silence crushed me more than her insults, but it wasn't just the house or the truck. It was money, always money. One afternoon, while Daniel was at work, Claire cornered me in the living room. "Dad," she began, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "You're retired now, right?" "Yes," I answered cautiously. "And you've got savings, a pension, probably even some investments. Isn't that right?" I nodded slowly. "I have enough to live on, yes." Her smile widened. "That's wonderful." Because Daniel and I were thinking we could use a little help. We want to buy a bigger house, and a down payment would really speed things along. You love Daniel, don't you? You want him to be happy? My stomach twisted. I knew what she was really saying. "Hand over your life savings." I looked her in the eye and said, "Claire, I've worked too hard to throw my money away. That's for my retirement, for emergencies, not for shopping sprees or bigger houses." Her face darkened instantly. The sweetness disappeared, replaced by something cold and sharp. "So, you're just going to sit on your money while your son struggles? You're selfish. Selfish." That word echoed in my mind long after she stormed out of the room. The man who sacrificed everything so Daniel could succeed was now being called selfish by the very woman who drained us dry. From that day on, things escalated. She began using my credit card without permission, memorizing the numbers and making online purchases. When I confronted her, she laughed. "What are you going to do? Cancel it. Daniel will just open another one for me. Face it, Dad, you can't stop me." Daniel, when I told him, dismissed my concerns. "She's just adjusting, Dad. Don't be so dramatic." Dramatic. Another dagger. It wasn't just the money, it was the humiliation. She stopped hiding her contempt in front of guests. At a family dinner one Sunday, she leaned across the table and said, "Robert, don't you think it's time you moved into a nursing home? You're old, and we need our privacy. This house should belong to us now." The guests laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But I saw the venom in her eyes. She meant every word. The final straw came a week later. I woke up early, as I always do, and walked into the kitchen to make coffee. Claire was already there, scrolling on her phone, dressed in expensive clothes I had no doubt she'd bought with my money. Good morning, I said softly. She didn't look up. Where's your credit card? I need it. I froze. Claire, I've told you before, no, that card is mine. Her head snapped up, eyes blazing. You think you're in control here? You're nothing but a burden. If you don't give me that card, you'll regret it. I shook my head, firm this time. No, enough is enough. For a moment, she stared at me in silence, her lips curling into a cruel smile. Then, without warning, she grabbed the steaming mug of coffee from the counter and flung it at my face. The liquid burned my skin, the shock more painful than the heat. I stumbled back, gasping. She stood there, smirking, as if she had just won some kind of twisted battle. When Daniel rushed in, I thought just for a second that he would defend me, that he would finally see the monster he had married. But Claire burst into fake tears, clutching his arm, wailing, "Your father hates me. He threatened me. He's trying to push me out of the house." And Daniel believed her. I was left standing there, drenched in coffee, my face red and burning, my heart shattered. My own son turned to me with anger in his eyes and said, "Dad, maybe you should just let her be. Stop making things so difficult." Difficult. That was the word he chose. I walked away that day, but inside something had shifted. I was no longer just a victim. I was a man pushed past his limits. And I promised myself, silently, firmly, that Claire would regret underestimating me. She thought I was weak. She thought I was powerless. She thought she could humiliate me forever, but she had no idea that the man she threw coffee on was about to turn her world upside down. That night, after the coffee incident, I sat alone in my room, staring at the ceiling in silence. My face still stung from the burns, but the pain on my skin was nothing compared to the fire raging inside my chest. I had endured many things in my life. Poverty, backbreaking labor, long nights of hunger, years of sacrifice. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to the humiliation of having hot coffee thrown in my face by the woman I had once welcomed into my family as a daughter. Worse still, my own son. The boy I had raised with my bare hands. The boy I had carried through sickness and guided through life had turned his back on me. He hadn't even asked if I was okay. He hadn't even looked me in the eyes. Instead, he had comforted her, the same woman who mocked me, stole from me, and treated me as if I were disposable. I felt invisible, unwanted, betrayed. For hours, I sat in the darkness, replaying every moment in my mind, her smug expression, her fake tears, my son's cold words. Every second burned deeper into me, carving scars that no amount of time could heal. And yet somewhere in that silence, a realization struck me like lightning. This wasn't just about the coffee. This wasn't just about a credit card. This was about respect. I had spent my whole life teaching Daniel that respect and integrity mattered more than money. But here I was, disrespected in my own house, treated like dirt. And why? Because I had chosen silence. Because I had allowed Claire to grow bold, to think of me as weak. My silence had been my mistake. I thought about packing my things and leaving. Maybe if I disappeared, Daniel would realize what he had lost. Maybe then he'd see the truth, but as quickly as the thought came, I crushed it. Leaving would mean surrender. Leaving would mean giving Claire exactly what she wanted. No, I wasn't going anywhere. I whispered to myself, "Robert, you've survived worse. You didn't break when the factory nearly crushed you. You didn't break when your wife passed away and left you to raise a son alone. And you won't break now." The truth was simple. Claire thought I was weak because I had let her believe it. She saw only an old man, quiet and soft-spoken, someone too tired to fight back. But she had no idea who I really was. She didn't know the battles I'd fought, the sacrifices I'd made, or the patience I'd mastered, and patience, I knew, could be the sharpest weapon of all. That night, I made a vow to myself. I would no longer sit silently and watch her tear apart everything I had built. If she wanted war, I would give her war, but on my terms, quiet, calculated, unstoppable. I rose from my chair and looked into the mirror. The man staring back at me was tired, yes, but his eyes were not weak. They burned with something Claire had never seen before: resolve. "This isn't the end," I muttered. "It's only the beginning." From that moment on, every smile I gave her was a mask. Every word I spoke was measured. She thought she had won. She thought she had broken me. But in reality, she had awakened a side of me she would soon regret ever meeting. From the day of the coffee incident, I changed. On the surface, I acted the same, quiet, reserved, almost defeated. But inside, I had already begun my war. Claire thought she had silenced me. She thought that by turning Daniel against me, she had stripped me of any power. In truth, she had done the opposite. She had freed me from hesitation. I decided that if I couldn't rely on my son to see the truth, I would make him see it. And the only way to do that was with proof, cold, undeniable proof of who his wife really was. So, I began to watch her. When she left the house, I paid attention to where she went. When she came home, I listened to her phone calls, her careless words, the whispers she thought I couldn't hear. It wasn't hard. Claire was arrogant. She believed I was too old, too slow to notice her movements. But she was wrong. The first discovery came quickly. One afternoon, as I passed by the kitchen, I overheard her talking on the phone. Her voice was low but hurried. "Yes, I used his card again. Don't worry, Daniel doesn't suspect anything. The old man's too dumb to—" "Notice, I'll send the money tonight." I froze. Send the money? To who and why? I knew then that her greed wasn't just about luxury. There was something bigger, something she was hiding. That night, after they both went to bed, I crept into the living room. I opened her purse, hands trembling but steady enough, and found a folded receipt. A transfer slip, thousands of dollars sent to an account under a man's name I didn't recognize. My stomach churned. Was she paying off debts? Or worse, was she supporting someone else? I made a copy of the slip and put everything back exactly as I had found it. My plan was working, I just needed more. Over the next weeks, I documented everything. Every unexplained expense, every late-night call, every cruel remark she made when Daniel wasn't around. I started keeping a notebook hidden under my mattress, filled with dates, times, amounts, and details. The more I wrote, the angrier I became. But anger wasn't enough. I needed a strategy. So I took another step. I bought a small recording device, cheap, easy to hide. I slipped it under the couch cushions, in the kitchen drawer, even beneath the dining table. And it didn't take long to catch her words. One evening, she was on the phone again. Her laughter was sharp, mocking. "Don't worry," she said, "I've got him under control. The old man thinks he's tough, but he'll hand over the money eventually. If not, I'll convince Daniel to put him in a nursing home. Once he's out of the picture, everything he owns will be ours anyway." I clenched my fists as I listened to the recording later. Every word was a knife, but strangely I didn't feel broken. I felt stronger, because now I had the truth. But I couldn't rush. If I confronted her too soon, she would twist the story, as she always did, and Daniel would side with her again. No, I needed her to trap herself, so I let her think she was winning. I even let her use my card once more, pretending I hadn't noticed. The bill arrived, and I said nothing. I forced myself to smile at her insults, nod at her commands, and stay silent when she boasted about her money. Inside I was burning, but outside I was calm. I was waiting. And then an opportunity presented itself. Claire announced that she was hosting a party at the house. She wanted to invite her friends, flaunt her wealth, and show off the lifestyle she claimed was hers. She ordered expensive decorations, catering, even a live band, using my money, of course. Daniel, as usual, said nothing. He was blind, or maybe just too tired to fight her. But me, I saw this party for what it really was, her stage, and I decided that this stage would become her downfall. I spent the days leading up to it preparing carefully. I organized the recordings, the receipts, the proof of her transfers. I even visited a lawyer just to make sure I understood my rights. By the time the party day arrived, I was ready. Ready not just to expose her lies, but to destroy the illusion she had built around Daniel, around everyone. The woman who had thrown coffee in my face thought she was untouchable. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The night of Claire's party arrived, and with it, the perfect storm I had been waiting for. The house was glowing, with expensive lights. Music thundered from rented speakers, and waiters in crisp uniforms carried trays of food that cost more than a month of my pension. Guests arrived in glittering dresses and sharp suits, laughing and toasting as if they were attending some high society gala. I stood in the corner, silent as always, a shadow in my own home. Nobody paid me much attention, just as Claire liked. She floated from guest to guest, her smile wide, her hands heavy with jewelry, her laughter loud enough to fill every corner of the room. She was playing the role of a wealthy, powerful woman, but behind that glitter, I saw the cracks. Her phone buzzed more than once that evening, and each time she checked it, a flicker of unease passed across her face. She'd slip into the hallway to answer, her voice low and hurried, and I knew deep in my gut that whoever was on the other end was the key to everything. I decided it was time to stop waiting. After the guests had eaten and the music was in full swing, I slipped upstairs, unnoticed. I went into Claire and Daniel's room and pulled open the drawer where she kept her purse. Inside, I found what I was looking for, her phone. I shouldn't have known the password, but I did. Months of watching her, memorizing her careless fingers as she typed, had given me exactly what I needed. My heart pounded as the screen unlocked. What I saw made my blood run cold. Messages, hundreds of them, not just with friends or family, with a man named Victor. At first I thought maybe he was just a friend, but the words on the screen told a different story. Don't worry, babe, he'll cave soon. Once I get access to the rest of his money, we'll finally be free. Daniel is clueless. He thinks I love him, but you're the only one I care about. I'll keep pressuring the old man. He won't last much longer. Nursing homes are cheap, and once he's gone, the house is ours. I froze, the phone shaking in my hand. It wasn't just greed, it wasn't just arrogance. Claire was betraying my son, my only child, while plotting to throw me into a nursing home and drain every cent I had worked for. Rage surged through me, hot and uncontrollable. But beneath that rage was something sharper, clarity. Finally, I had the proof. I copied everything, screenshots, photos of the messages, even bank transfer confirmations she had sent to Victor. I backed them up carefully, storing them on a hidden USB drive I'd prepared weeks before. By the time I returned to the party, I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was holding a weapon, and then fate handed me the perfect moment. Halfway through the evening, Claire stood up on a small stage near the dining area, raising her glass of champagne. "To family!" she shouted. "To success, to love, and to a future filled with everything we deserve." The guests clapped and cheered, her smile gleaming under the lights. She looked unstoppable. That's when I stepped forward. "Excuse me," I said, my voice louder than it had been in months. The room fell silent, all eyes turned toward me. Claire's smile faltered. "What are you doing?" she hissed, low enough for only me to hear. "Something I should have done a long time ago," I replied. I pulled out my small recorder, the same one that had been hidden under the furniture for weeks. With a click, her voice filled the room. "Don't worry, I'll convince Daniel to put him in a nursing home. Once he's out of the picture, everything he owns will be ours." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Daniel's face went pale. Claire stumbled back, shaking her head, but I wasn't done. I pulled a stack of printed screenshots from my pocket and dropped them onto the table. "Go on, Claire," I said coldly. "Tell everyone who Victor is. Tell them why thousands of dollars have been leaving my account. Tell them how you laugh behind my son's back while you plan a future with another man." Her hands trembled as she grabbed the papers, her face draining of color. "This is fake," she cried. "He's lying." But the damage was done. Guests whispered. Daniel grabbed the pages from her and scanned them with wide, horrified eyes. The truth was undeniable. Claire's mask shattered. She screamed, cursed, tried to grab my recorder, but Daniel stepped between us. For the first time in months, he looked at me. Not with anger, not with dismissal, but with shame. "Dad," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Is this true?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The proof spoke for itself. Claire, realizing her game was over, tried one last trick. She clutched Daniel's arm, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, please, you know I love you. He's twisting everything. He's just jealous. He's trying to ruin us." But this time, Daniel didn't fall for it. His shoulders sagged, as if a great weight had finally been lifted from him. He looked at her with eyes full of betrayal. "Pack your things, Claire," he said quietly. "You're done here." The room erupted in murmurs, some in shock, others in satisfaction. And for the first time in years, I stood tall, no longer the weak, silent man she thought I was. Claire's reign was over, but as satisfying as it was to see her exposed, I knew this was only the turning point. The true justice, the real downfall, was still to come. The party ended in chaos. Claire stormed upstairs in a rage, screaming accusations and slamming doors, while guests slipped away whispering about the scandal they had just witnessed. Daniel sat at the dining table, head in his hands, his world crumbling around him. I wanted to comfort him, but I knew this wasn't the moment. The truth needed to sink in, and Claire needed to hang herself with her own rope. The next morning, the storm truly began. Claire came downstairs, eyes swollen from crying, but her voice was sharp, commanding. "Daniel, you're not really going to believe him, are you? He forged those messages. He's trying to split us apart." But Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he picked up the printed screenshots from the night before and slammed them down on the table. "Then explain this," he demanded. "Explain why thousands of dollars have been leaving Dad's account every month. Explain why you told another man you were planning to put him in a nursing home." For the first time, Claire faltered. Her lips opened and closed, but no sound came out. She tried to fake another round of tears, but the act fell flat. "You don't understand," she finally stammered. "Victor, he's just a friend. He needed help and—" Daniel cut her off sharply. "Enough lies, Claire. I've seen enough." Her face twisted, the mask completely gone now. "Fine," she screamed. "Yes, I sent him money. Yes, I used your father's card. Do you think I care? I deserve it. I've had to put up with this old man living under our roof, acting like he owns everything. Well, I wanted my share. And Victor was supposed to give me the life you never could." Her words were like acid. The room fell silent, but I felt a strange calm settle over me. She had finally admitted it. And this time, Daniel heard every single word. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was open contempt. Daniel stood slowly, his eyes hard. "Pack your things, Claire. You're leaving this house today." Claire's jaw dropped. "You can't do this. This is my home too." "No," I said firmly, stepping forward. "This was my home, and you've poisoned it long enough." For the first time, Claire realized she was cornered. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but there was none. Daniel's face was stone, Mine was unflinching. Still, she tried one last desperate gamble. If you kick me out, I'll take everything. I'll file for divorce and drain Daniel dry. You'll both regret this. I smiled faintly, pulling a small envelope from my pocket. Not if the court sees. These first. Inside were copies of her bank transfers, her messages to Victor, and recordings of her scheming. Enough evidence not just for a divorce, but for fraud and theft charges as well. Her face went pale. She snatched the envelope from my hands, flipping through the papers, her fingers trembling. You can't." "Oh, but I can," I replied coldly. "You thought I was weak. You thought I was too old, too blind to see what you were doing. But every insult, every theft, every scheme, you handed me the rope to hang you with. And now, Claire, it's over." Daniel reached for the papers, scanning them himself. When he finished, he didn't look at me. He didn't need to. His silence was enough. Claire screamed, a sound more animal than human, and threw the papers across the room. "I hate you!" she shrieked at me. "I hate you both! You'll regret this!" But her threats meant nothing. Within days, Daniel filed for divorce, backed by the mountain of evidence I had collected. The lawyer I had visited earlier helped us build the case, ensuring that Claire couldn't claim a penny more than she deserved, and then came the final blow. Victor, the man she had been sending money to, wasn't the charming savior she thought he was. A quick background check revealed he was already married, with 2 kids, and had been using Claire for her money, just as she had been using me. When Daniel showed her the proof, she broke completely. Her arrogance, her pride, all of it crumbled into pitiful sobs. She had lost her husband, her home, her false lover, and her reputation, all in one swift stroke. Justice had finally come. The day she left, she carried only 2 suitcases. No jewels, no credit cards, no luxury, just the bare essentials. As she walked out the door, she glared at me one last time, venom dripping from her eyes. "You think you've won, old man," she spat. "But without me, this family is nothing." I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "No, Claire. Without you, this family finally has peace." She slammed the door and vanished from our lives. For weeks afterward, the silence in the house felt strange, almost too quiet. But it was a silence filled with relief, not tension. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Daniel, though broken by betrayal, began to see clearly. He apologized over and over, tears in his eyes. "Dad, I should have listened to you. I let her blind me. I let her poison everything. Can you ever forgive me?" I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Son, forgiveness is easy. Rebuilding trust, that takes time. But we'll get there." And we did. Slowly, the wounds began to heal. The weeks after Claire's departure were quiet, almost eerily so. The shouting, the insults, the endless arguments, all gone. At first, the silence felt heavy, as though the house itself was still, holding its breath after years of tension. But slowly, that silence became comforting. It was the sound of peace returning. For the first time in years, I could sit at the breakfast table without being mocked for the way I dressed, without being treated like a burden. I could drink my coffee, black, simple, just the way I liked it, without fearing it would end up thrown in my face. Daniel, though devastated, was different now too. He no longer avoided my gaze. He no longer defended her. Instead, he carried guilt in his eyes, shame in his voice. Time and again, he came to me, apologizing. "Dad," he said one evening, his voice trembling, "I don't know how I let it go this far. I thought she loved me. I thought you were just being stubborn. I should have believed you." I looked at him carefully. He was no longer the boy I had raised. He was a man scarred by betrayal. But scars, I knew, could either harden us or teach us. I placed a hand on his shoulder and said softly, "Son, love makes us blind. What matters is that you see the truth now. That's enough." He broke down, crying openly, something I hadn't seen since he was a child, and in that moment, the wall between us began to crumble. The bond that Claire had tried so hard to shatter was mending, piece by piece. Life moved forward. The divorce went through quickly, thanks to the evidence I had gathered. Claire left with almost nothing, her pride destroyed, her schemes exposed. Victor, the man she thought would rescue her, abandoned her the moment the money stopped flowing. Her downfall was complete. As for me, I found a strange sense of strength in all of it. For years, I had believed that being silent, being patient was the best way to keep the peace, but silence had nearly destroyed me. Silence had allowed Claire to grow bold. What I learned, what I will never forget, is that respect must be defended. You can give love freely, you can give kindness, you can give patience, but once someone crosses the line and disrespects you, silence is no longer a virtue, it becomes surrender. I wasn't just a victim of Claire's greed, I was a survivor of it. And to anyone listening right now, if you have ever been used, manipulated, or disrespected by someone you trusted, remember this: you are not powerless, you are not weak. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in shouting or fighting, but in waiting, watching, and striking when the moment is right. Today, my son and I share quiet dinners together. We laugh again. We plan small trips. Sometimes we sit on the porch and just watch the sunset in silence. It's not the silence of fear anymore, it's the silence of healing. And every time I sip my coffee, I think back to that day, to the sting of hot liquid on my skin, to the humiliation I thought I'd never recover from. And I smile, not because it was easy, but because it proved something to me. No matter how dark the moment, justice will always find its way. Before I end this story, let me ask you, have you ever had someone in your life who tried to use you, take advantage of your kindness, or disrespect you just because they thought you were weak? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments. I read every single one, and I'd love to thank you personally. And if this story moved you, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Because at the end of the day, we all deserve respect, and sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living in peace.